It is, oh, are we?
You're live.
Are we live? So we're on. Okay. Hi, everyone in virtual land too. Everyone in virtual land, you should have received an email about 5 minutes ago with the reopening plan. So go ahead and check your inbox and make sure you have that. We do have Mrs. Cody and Mrs. Pernella manning the station over there. So if you have any technical difficulties, they're in the chat feature and on email. So if you need any help, reach out to them. So it's great to see people back here on campus again. Welcome home. I've been excited about this evening and tomorrow, all last week and today, just because I get a chance to see you all again. And it's really, really exciting. Camp has opened up. Camp is doing really well. I think one of the best things to hear during the day is laughter from children again. It warms my heart to see them out there playing. It warms my heart to see them out there getting hurt. My wife, Dr. Viscusi, is serving as the camp nurse, and the camp nurse that we normally have quit the day before camp was going to start. Had something else going on and wasn't sure he wanted to deal with the whole COVID thing. He's in his third year of medical school, so I'm thinking you might want to think about his career. Anyway, so Melinda stepped in, thankfully, and today was a busy day, right? A lot of kids bashing heads and things like that. And it's great. It's great to see that again. It's great to see kids getting hurt and bouncing right back up and going back outside and playing, because that's what they need to do. You'll notice we have lacrosse going on out there. They've been here for a few months now, actually. And hello, welcome. You missed nothing. It's really great to see the campus coming alive again, and we're really looking forward to it really coming back to life in September. I'm going to stress this throughout the whole presentation tonight that our plan is to fully open 5 days a week, no staggered days. We have the luxury here of 4 buildings and 14 acres. We can spread out, we can do whatever the Department of Health needs us to do in terms of social distancing. We can make that happen, and we can do it safely for all of the students and faculty, so that we can get our kids back in the classrooms with the least restrictive environment, but the most safe environment out there. So you have your reopening guide in front of you. I'm going to go over it with you, page by page, step by step. I'm going to hold questions until the end, because some of your questions may be answered later on in the, there's one of our camp counselors now, Mrs. Judge. That is you behind the bandana, right? We just talked about how great camp is going. Yeah. The Department of Health actually was here on Friday, checking us out for the second time. And they were here for about 3.5 hours, maybe 4 hours. And when she left, she just said, "This is amazing. You guys have it down. And oh, by the way, I'm going to go close another camp right now. One of the biggest camps out in Nassau County. She was about ready to close because they're just not following any protocol. They're not keeping their kids safe. She had mentioned to us that she had closed 3 camps that week, but she said if everybody ran camp the way you guys are running camp, we wouldn't have any issues. And really, it's just a matter of, they say they're doing one thing, and then when they get there, they're not doing any of that. So it's really just negligence. But it was important for us to open up camp so that we could see what works and see what doesn't work for school, and so that we could make sure we work all the kinks out before school begins in September. So I'm going to go through this. I'm going to save some time for questions at the end, and then let you go home and digest all this, and certainly email, call if you have questions, comments, thoughts. Mr. Faraday is over there taking notes, so that at the end of this, if there are comments, thoughts, suggestions that we didn't think of, we're taking these notes and we're taking it home with us so that we can consider all points, because this really is something that we have to work on together. Because the state has been so helpful throughout this entire process. I mean, every day there's notice the sarcasm. 6:57 last night is when I got the actual guidelines for independent schools. That's when they came in, 6:57 last night. And they said you need to have a plan submitted to the Department of Health by Friday of this week. I'm not worried because I think the plan that we have is fine, but then we need to submit another plan to the state by August 7th, which, you know, is going to be long and detailed. They want maps of the campus, they want our educational philosophy. Fine, we have nothing to hide there, and we can completely fulfill whatever requirements they have. But I think part of it is that this is an ever-changing and ever-evolving situation. And so, you know, when they come out and say one thing, the next day they find out something different or something new. So they have to readjust any guidelines that they have that they might have put out the day before. So on the first slide, of course, is our reopening philosophy, where we came from, where we started from when we were thinking about reopening. The objective was to formulate a plan that meets both the state and the Department of Health requirements in the least restrictive environment, while keeping students and faculty as safe as possible. Our philosophy is coming from a place of health and wellness and not fear. And that's what we want to stress to the kids as well. We don't want to put things into place that are going to scare the children. We want to put things into place that are going to help the children think about what is in the best interest of our health and wellness. Not only physical wellness, but social, emotional, and spiritual wellness as well. And we'll get to that later on because I think that's the most important thing we have to address come fall. These guidelines and requirements are ever changing. Our plan is to be fully open, toddler through 8th grade, 5 days a week for all students. And as we move through this together, I think flexibility and respect for everybody in the community is our key to reopening. There are a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different opinions, and all of those thoughts and opinions are backed, are substantiated by facts. Everybody has a different thought as to how we need to do this. And I think everybody's thought is important, but everybody's thought might be different from one another. But I think it's important for us as a community to come together and realize, okay, let's do what we need to do to keep our kids safe, healthy, emotionally stable, and in school. So I think that is our key to reopening as we move through this together. So the first page is just an opening letter from me. I'm going to read it just so that we have, so that we're all on the same page, no pun intended. I hope that you're enjoying these summer days, staying safe, happy, and healthy. We have been very busy here on campus these past few weeks. In addition to addressing our reopening plan, we have successfully opened Old Westbury Summer Camp. It really is a blessing to hear laughter and see smiles again on children's faces. This reopening guide was created by the administrative team along with guidance and conversations with state and local officials, the CDC, Department of Health, board members, faculty, staff, and parents. Without question, this has been a challenging time, and while we continue to receive guidance from a variety of outlets, this document has been ever-changing. All the while, we have approached our reopening plan to be addressed from a place of health and wellness and not fear. The students' safety and well-being is and will always be first and foremost. We want students to feel safe and comfortable while here at school so that they can continue to grow in a loving and caring environment. This plan provides a general overview for how we will approach school being in session, given the information and guidance we have received at this point. It is our plan to fully open in September. We have the luxury here of being a small school by design with 14 acres and 4 educational buildings. Now, even the administrative team said to me, 4 buildings, you don't know how to count, Art, there's 3. I count Connolly Hall and the library as 2 separate buildings. Sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds much better. 4 sounds better. However, as we have seen over the past few months, circumstances change very quickly, and so our plans may have to be adjusted as well. Moving forward, we will keep the community apprised of any and all changes to this plan. We appreciate all the support and cooperation we have received, knowing that we are all working to do our best for our children. While our actual plan will not be submitted and approved until August, we thought it appropriate to share with the greater community where we are in the process. So, on that note of communication, open lines of communication, we will begin to resume those regular letters and some videos that you might get from me on a regular basis as well, starting next week. As this plan is now rolled out, and any changes that might come our way, you'll receive weekly information from us. I know I sang on a few of those Monday morning assemblies. I don't know if I'll be on that. I've been at practice. Our plan is divided into two sections: minimizing exposure and health and wellness. And then at the end, like I said, we will have a few minutes for questions. So we're just going to dive right in, starting with our entry and exit procedures. And again, a lot of these procedures are procedures that we have in place for camp, and they are working well for camp, so we wanted to do the same thing for school. Students, faculty, and staff will complete a health screening questionnaire prior to arrival. This questionnaire will address the following: have you presented with symptoms of COVID in the past 14 days? Have you tested positive for COVID in the past 14 days? Have you had close contact with a confirmed or suspected COVID-19 case in the past 14 days? If you have a temperature greater than 100, have you or anyone that you have come in contact with traveled internationally or to a state that is included on the New York State Travel Advisory in the past 14 days? The way we're doing this now is a questionnaire that starts at, that the students and the parents submit at the beginning of the session, the camp session, and then that goes for the 2 weeks. We are investing in a new software system called Blackbaud, where we think it'll be very simple for you to just go on to the new portal and check off that you have read and don't have any of the, haven't said yes to any of the 5. All information collected will be held in the strictest confidence in accordance with HIPAA regulations. At this time, temperature checks for students are still in question. I'm going to try not to put my personal, 2 cents into this a lot, but right now, temperature checks and the pointing of a device at something at a child's forehead and pulling a trigger is something that concerns me a bit. Out of everything that is going on, that's the one thing that concerns me. I went to the doctor's yesterday and they checked my temperature when I went in. It was 96, and I was sweating, of course, it was like 180 degrees out. And I go, oh my gosh, I'm sweating. She goes, I know, these things are registering at 101 for everybody because they're coming in from out of the heat. And you're letting them in. Oh yeah, because it's not correct. And that's at the doctor's office, okay? So I think that there is, something behind that. A lot of the literature out there is saying that you can ask parents to just say that they are, they're not sending their kids to school with a fever. So that's where I stand at this point with that. Doctor, yes, you want to comment on that?
Well, in the hospital on a daily basis, we're filling out a questionnaire via the internet. And they're requesting us to tell them that I don't have a temperature, right. I'm going to do all these other questions.
Right.
More than acceptable.
Yes.
On the days that I didn't do that, I walked in, my temperature never once was over 96 degrees Fahrenheit. And not once have I been sent to the emergency room for hypothermia. So I'm just trying to tell you that I understand the concept of temperature checks, but there should be some level of trust that we're doing it in the house.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do. And it's working for camp, and the Department of Health is completely fine with that. So that's the direction I want to take. Parents dropping off and picking up children must wait in their cars, and children will be escorted to and from the cars. And that's not too dissimilar from how we have done things in the past. The biggest, I think, issue with that is going to be early childhood and some of the lower grades, where the kids, especially in the first, Mrs. Frank, you can attest to this, first couple weeks of school, you can't peel them off your leg. I literally remember when we dropped Devin off, I didn't do it, Melinda did it, when we dropped Devin off and he tried to escape from the daycare facility, and he succeeded one day. So we understand that it's tough. So we're going to build into the schedule prior to school orientation days for the little ones so that they can come here, they can feel safe, they can walk in with moms and dads, they can see their teacher, and they can, when school comes September 10th, whenever the first day is, it's not something that they're worried about. And again, we'll take that on a case-by-case basis. If the kid is certainly not coming in, we'll make arrangements with parents to make sure that they can walk their kids in. I think in the middle school, it will be like, some of those videos that are out there where the car drives by and the kid gets thrown out and the backpack follows. Right, Nicholas? Connolly Hall, this is a big change. Connolly Hall, the next page, will serve as the primary entrance for the entire campus with regards to visitors. Parents and visitors will not be allowed in the buildings, ECC, O'Sullivan Hall, and our two other buildings, the library and common, unless prior permission is granted. All parents and visitors must first report to Connolly Hall, obtain a visitor's pass, and be screened prior to entrance. Again, that screening, will be likely a questionnaire. Some people that we don't know, if vendors are coming out, we may do a temperature check just as vendors are coming out. This is important to, again, stop a lot of people inside the buildings where the risk might be higher of any transmission, but it's also from a safety standpoint, having one pinch point on campus where all visitors come into and out of is going to be much safer than people going into different buildings. I think this is something that we have been really considering for quite a while, and this situation just helped us really speed that up a bit. And from our police officers here, I'm sure that this is a much safer way to do things. The visitor's pass will be given to visitors when they come in, so if they are walking on campus, everybody knows they've been screened and checked and that they should be on campus. All parents dropping off students late or picking up students early will drop them off or meet their child in Connolly Hall. So Nicholas has a dentist appointment, he has to get picked up at 2 o'clock. He will be escorted to Connolly Hall at 2 o'clock and we'll pick him up from there. All visitors, outside vendors will be screened prior to entrance. Temperature checks are a possibility for them, but the questionnaire is definitely. And the reason I would do the temperature checks for the vendors, especially people that we don't know, is Dr. Yakos went, I want to trust everybody here in the community, but sometimes vendors are coming in, I don't know who they are, so I want to go through a little bit more of a stringent process with them before allowing them anywhere close to our children. Arrival and dismissal will be monitored closely to ensure appropriate social distancing. And this is so that, if you remember in the early childhood center, all the kids would come in and they would all be sitting in the hall and kind of all on top of each other. We will have additional teachers out there to make sure that kids are staying, not all over each other constantly. Face coverings. Everything that I have up here in bold and italics at the top of each slide is the guidelines that the state is saying that we have to adhere to. So that's what that is. So they're saying responsible parties must maintain protocols and procedures for students and faculty and staff to ensure appropriate PPE when social distancing is not possible. So students will be issued blue or white face coverings at the beginning of the year. These are very similar to bandanas. This is, again, what we've done for Camden, where they have them around their neck, they're with them all the time, they're not on the ears. It's actually, we're going to be custom made for all the students, and each student will be given 2. They're elastic in the back. You don't want the bandanas, because as we're finding, and Mrs. Judge, you can attest to this, with the bandanas, it's a constant tying and retying of the bandanas. So that if they're in a situation where social distancing is not possible, they can easily pull this up. However, face coverings will not be required during instruction, and that is according to New York State. They're saying that during instruction, face coverings impact instruction. Of course, they will be worn during lunch, and that wasn't the guidelines actually. It specifically said students should not wear a face mask when eating. And they will not be required during breaks as long as social distancing is possible. Face coverings will not be required when students are outside unless social distancing is not possible. Any student who cannot wear a face covering due to a medical condition is not required to wear face coverings, provided that they provide documentation from a medical professional. There are instances out there where students cannot wear face coverings for certain reasons, and we have to respect that. Again, this is for when students are in close proximity to one another. If they can't provide social distancing, they have the opportunity to pull the face coverings out. It is working really well during camp. When the kids are outside and they're running around, they have their bandanas around their neck. It's not impacting them in any way. They're not forgetting them. It's not in their pocket. It's not on the ground. They're not putting it on backwards when they do put it on, which is even worse than wearing nothing. And it's really simple to just pull up. When the Department of Health came in, they said that's genius. That I wish other camps were doing that. I wish other camps had thought of a way to make it so that it's not restrictive, but still safe for all children. At this time, according to the CDC, face shields are not adequate for preventing the transmission of COVID, unless worn with the addition of a cloth face mask. I have seen people wearing the face shields, and that, at the end of the year, we were seeing people wear face shields, but they're saying that that's not, because it's open the whole way. So just put that in there for, okay. Social distancing. Social distancing. Responsible parties must maintain protocols and procedures for students, faculty, and staff to ensure appropriate social distancing to protect against the transmission of COVID. Social distancing is currently defined by distancing individuals 6 feet apart. Classrooms will be situated to allow for proper social distancing without the use of barriers between individuals. Again, we have the luxury here to space children out, to space desks out. We don't want to have plexiglass barriers up in between children while they're trying to learn. That's going to impact the learning. So we can space them out appropriately, make sure that they're spaced out, and again, having the least restrictive environment. Common spaces will be marked with floor markings and seat markings to allow for appropriate social distancing. This includes the lunchroom, the gymnasium, locker rooms, and other common areas. So for example, in the locker room in the gym, we will have every other locker blocked out that students can't use. So they're not right next to each other when putting things in their locker, they're spaced out, or every 2 lockers actually, because that's more appropriate. Parent-teacher conferences and other essential meetings will be structured so to ensure appropriate social distancing. Again, so that we can have conversations with one another without having to necessarily, unless people are comfortable wearing face coverings. But we want to set it up so that it's an option. We can provide safety and security with or without that, especially in the beginning of the year when it's hot. Classroom procedures. Responsible parties must maintain protocols and procedures for students, faculty, and staff to ensure appropriate social distancing to protect against the transmission of COVID. Classrooms will be reimagined to ensure for social distancing without impacting the mission and philosophy of Holy Child Academy. Some of the furniture might have to come out of the classrooms in order for this to happen. For example, student cupboards, where they put things. In the middle school, they're already outside of the classrooms and it works very well. We might have to do that in the lower school as well to allow for more space in the classroom to spread out. Instead of having carpets, we might use things on the floor for the little ones that we can easily wipe down and disinfect every day, because carpets are, not only for COVID, but they're a breeding ground for lots of germs. And class sizes will be kept to a minimum to ensure for appropriate social distancing in each classroom. Right now, we are conducting a space analysis of every single classroom on our campus, and we will be using every single classroom on our campus. And we are looking at it so that we find the square footage and we put the appropriate number of students in each room to allow for maximum social distancing. Different grades might have different numbers based on sizes of classrooms, and we may need to open up additional sections. Currently, we are looking at a lot of interest in the school, and we may have to open up additional sections in at least 4 of the grades. Because some of those grades are getting up past 20, 21, 22, and that's too many students to have in one classroom. Not only just because of social distancing, but just in terms of our philosophy. The philosophy is to keep the class sizes small. And that's exciting for us. But again, we're going to have to use every available space. This annex that we have over here, those 2 classrooms behind us, those are going to have to be used again for classrooms. The conservatory will have to be redesigned for classroom use. The library will be used quite often. As we were going through this, we actually ended up just putting everything in the library. Let's just put it in the library. Oh, we'll put it in the library. We realized the library is completely jam-packed, and so we have to build a 5th building. Okay. Student groupings and cohorting. Responsible parties should cohort students to the extent practicable to limit potential exposure to the COVID virus. Class sizes shall not exceed the amount allotted for students to allow for appropriate social distancing. Students will remain in class groups for all activities when possible, including but not limited to lunch, recess. So a class will stay together and not mix too much with other classes. When they're outside, fourth grade will be with fourth grade, fifth grade will be with fifth grade. We want to keep those groups together. And that's so, if we do have a presumptive or positive case, we limited the number of people that students that were exposed. And so we want to make sure that these cohorts and groupings stay together as much as possible throughout the day. Large assemblies that do not allow for social distancing will be suspended until further notice. This includes all school masses, Monday morning assemblies. Assemblies and masses will be streamed live in classrooms instead. So Monday morning assembly would look like this. So maybe the first week of school, the kindergarten is here for Monday morning assembly, while first through eighth grade are watching it live in their classroom. Next week, it's second grade, the first grade that's in here, and we'll be on a rotating basis. And my idea for that is actually to have the kids take over Monday morning assembly, so that it's not all me, and they're not listening to me for 45 minutes straight, because that can get pretty boring, but they actually become more of an active participant in Monday morning assembly. Masses will be streamed live in the classrooms, and again, we'll have certain grades in with Father Tom, you know, whether it's in the gym or in the chapel to participate. Communion is a big one, September 25th, our second grade students last year, or our third grade students will be participating in their first communion. They will, of course, be live with Father Tom, as well as their parents, and the rest of the school will be watching in their classroom and participating with them. Students in grades toddler through 6 will be in self-contained classrooms, and teachers will rotate into their classrooms when possible. So with the exception, of course, of PE and art and science in the middle school, they have to go to those rooms. But all other times, teachers will go to them. Again, it's to minimize the amount of time they're spending in all the different classrooms where they can be exposed to different germs. Again, not just COVID. 7 and 8 will have limited travel to classrooms because, again, we want to get them prepared for high school, and they're going to have to know how to go from class to class, and they'll all be on the second floor of O'Sullivan. So they will be traveling from class to class in 7th and 8th grade, but they'll be kept to the top floor. I also think that's better, again, for the 4th graders that are in O'Sullivan Hall to be a little bit separated from 7th and 8th graders. I've always thought that, you know, 8th graders and 4th graders in the bathroom together, you don't know what the 4th graders are overhearing because the 8th grade, you know what I'm So I think it's also just philosophically better for all students. And 5th and 6th grade in many schools are still self-contained. And I think it's important for us to remember the age of a 5th grade student. And to think about the fact that, you know, we're now throwing them into a completely departmentalized schedule and program where they're going from class to class, and it might be too young. So this is kind of easing into that for 5th and 6th grade, where it is departmentalized. They do have a different teacher for math and a different teacher for science and history and English and so on, but that teacher is going to them instead of them going to the teacher. So pedagogically, I think it makes a lot of sense to keep those students self-contained, teachers going to them, and then 7th and 8th grade, they open it up to where they're moving around. Executive functioning for 7th and 8th graders is tough enough. For 5th and 6th graders, forget it. For me, forget it. Executive functioning is something I didn't have. It wasn't called executive functioning when I was going through school either. I wish it was. It sounds better. Traveling. To reduce social density, responsible parties should assess indoor spaces. So travel markers will be placed in the hallways. Stairwells will be marked to allow for one-way travel. We're talking about the stairwells in O'Sullivan Hall. One set of staircases will be going up. The other set of staircases will be coming down. Going down into the lunchroom, there are 2 sets of staircases. One will be for going down, one will be for going up. Again, so that we don't have a lot of cross traffic passing by each other. Groups will travel together at designated times to minimize social density in the hallways. I think a lot of that is going to be mitigated by the fact that toddler through 6th grade will really be in their classrooms for most of the time, so there won't be a lot of travel in the hallways. which again, I think is good. Food service. We have a new chef manager, and she has been here working the camp. Her name is Kathy Cassio. She was here before. She is fantastic. Chef Mike actually ended up getting another job before this whole pandemic hit. He was going to stay on for the rest of the year for us, and then he was going to, he wasn't going to work camp. He was going to take this other job, and it is a job he was looking for quite a while. And Kathy Cassio, who's familiar with the school, has worked in the kitchen here before, has come in, and is really doing wonderful things in the kitchen. So, responsible parties must provide meals while maintaining appropriate social distancing, and proper cleaning and disinfecting must be done between meal times. So multiple meal times will be scheduled to allow for fewer students in the lunchroom. Our tables will seat 3 students instead of 8. Students will pre-select meal options, and lunches will be prepared and packaged for distribution with minimal contact. So the way that we're imagining this is the menu for the week will be posted the week before on Friday. Parents and students will look at the options available, will select something that they, select their choices for each day, and that will be prepackaged and prepared, and the students can pick it up so that they're not going through the line and having a lot of contact. The salad bar, of course, will not be able to be open. However, Kathy has developed a beautiful salad bar with individual clamshells of lettuce and all of the fixings, so it's all still there. So students can still have access to everything that they loved last year. It's just now prepackaged in individual little clamshells. And it actually is better for us in the long run too, because it cuts down a lot of waste. Instead of putting a bowl of salad out, she has a salad in each individual thing, so she can just use that every day if the kids don't touch it. Again, this also comes from a place of health and wellness, where we can work with our children to help them select the best meal, the best option for them. Now, there will still be flexibility, because you know what's going to happen. They're going to come in, they said they wanted the broccoli and the Brussels sprouts and the carrots and nothing else, but then they see that there's the chicken tenders, and they're going to want the chicken tenders. And so we're still going to allow them to go up to Kathy and to the assistant and say, all right, I would like chicken tenders, or at least the teacher who is monitoring the lunch duty will facilitate that. We change our mind constantly. So, but this at least gives you an idea too of what your child will be selecting. If it becomes an issue where, every day they've selected one thing and they ask for something else, we're going to call you to let them know that they're doing that. Because, again, we started seeing all this money coming off when Aria was in public school. What's going on? And she was getting ice cream every day. That's all she was eating, was ice cream every day, 3 or 4 different things of ice cream. And finally, we called the school and said, what's going on? Oh, yeah, she eats ice cream every day. You gotta tell us? No wonder she's going on with a stomach ache and a headache every day. So we'll let you know. Utensils and plates can be disposable. Unfortunately, we were having a big push to go green, and we're taking kind of a step backwards with that. Beverages will be in individual bottles and containers. Food service employees will wear disposable PPE at all times while preparing and serving food, including black gloves, face coverings, hair coverings. Trash bins will be placed at a variety of locations throughout the cafeteria to allow for proper social distancing. Because if you ever been down in the lunchroom, you saw at the end of the lunch period, all the kids got up to throw their food out. You had about 70 kids all gathered around 2 trash containers throwing their food out. So again, this is going to make for an easier flow anyways to have trash bins throughout the cafeteria. Water fountains will not be used. Students will be asked to bring in refillable water bottles, and we do have those refillable water stations in O'Sullivan Hall. In the Early Childhood Center, it'll still be the Brita filters, and the teachers will refill water bottles. We'll have water bottles here if kids are thirsty. We'll have cups to help them, but the water fountains, and there's really no water fountains in O'Sullivan, will be closed until further notice. Again, when the Department of Health came in and saw our kitchen for camp, they were very impressed with the cleanliness of it. Again, not even just for COVID, just for overall the cleanliness and the sanitation and the steps that the new kitchen staff is taking to ensure everything is clean and safe and healthy. So here's the big one, busing. It's up to your districts, not us. Any transportation provided by a school district is the responsibility of the district. Please check with your district regarding guidelines and procedures. We are looking into, and I don't know if we'll be able to do it for this fall, but eventually I would like to have our own busing here so we didn't have to deal with districts because I know how much of a headache that can be. But, as of right now, they're saying the deadline was April 1st. Well, the world was a different place April 1st. Some of them have extended that deadline. If you're not getting busing, I encourage you to continue to push your district to get that busing. You're still paying the taxes, so you are still entitled to that busing. If you need help from us, we've done it before. We've written letters to the busing companies, and sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't, but it doesn't hurt to try. For our own purposes, transportation by bus will be utilized as long as the group going has been together for the day and distancing can be accommodated. And that the bus company must adhere to any sanitizing guidelines that we have in addition to whatever the Department of Health has. So if we are to go on field trips, we will be using our own private busing and making sure that we can appropriately socially distance on the bus and make sure that it's sanitized, that nobody else is using it in between our usage of it. So for example, if they're dropping us off at the Cradle of Aviation at 10 o'clock, they're staying there until 2 o'clock and not going and making another run and having another set of students on that bus. Again, just, I'd like to trust that they disinfected it, but I want to make sure that our kids are safe, so that's how we will move forward with buses. Field trips will only be scheduled if the venue meets or exceeds our standards and the CDC standards with regards to distancing and allowing for disinfecting. Extended day will continue to operate. All efforts will be made to maintain cohorts, if applicable, and or members of the same household. All equipment in the extended day area will be thoroughly disinfected before and after extended day. Somebody said, well, isn't that the same thing, before and after? Well, in extended day, if we disinfect after, classes could go in during the day and handle what's in there. So we will make sure that we disinfect before as well, so that it's just, plain and safe. But it will continue until 5:30 like it normally has. I put pool safety in there, not that we use the pool all that often, but we do have it. So I wanted to make sure that, in the event that a class is using the pool, you know that we are maintaining everything that needs to be maintained to make sure that it's properly disinfected, and we're allowing for social distancing. But COVID is not a waterborne virus, but personal flotation devices such as goggles and things like that must be provided by the children. The school will not be providing. They won't be sharing with pool noodles and things like that if you were to use the pool. And currently our lifeguard staff is making sure that our chlorine is at the perfect level every day. And again, the Department of Health came in and it was spot on when they tested the water. They're really diligent about it this year. Last year, it was every day, every time they came in, there was always something wrong with the chlorine. They got it figured out now this year, so that's good. Disinfecting and cleaning. Students will sanitize their hands prior to entering and leaving classrooms. Hand sanitizer will be provided for each classroom. Whenever students leave classrooms, all high-touch surface areas will be sanitized. Tabletops, desktops, sink handles, doorknobs, light switches, etc. Tables in the lunchroom will be cleaned prior to and after each lunch group. All personal hygiene stations will be fully equipped with soap, water, disposable paper towels, alcohol-based hand sanitizer consisting of 60% or more alcohol. Hand sanitizer will be throughout the entire campus, and all disinfectant cleaners will meet CDC and Department of Health requirements. The school will be using electrostatic disinfectant. That's going to be the disinfectant that we're using. We are getting installed the electrostatic disinfecting machine in Connolly Hall. So we will make our own disinfectant here. It's the same concept as a saltwater pool, basically. The salt, the water mixes, the electrolysis does something, and it creates, I gotta get this right, I think it's hypochlorous acid. I said it wrong once to a parent, and their eyes, because I said the one that burns through your skin on contact, so I have to make sure I say it right. And that hypochlorous acid is CDC and EPA approved, and it is safe. It is salt water. If kids touch it, put it in their mouth, they're tasting salt water, and that's all it is. We have to disinfect throughout the day. I did not want bleach constantly being used all day. That's going to irritate not only the kids' eyes and mouths, and it's going to make them sick to their stomach, it's going to give them headaches. So I wanted something that was going to be safe and effective. This hypochlorous acid has a 5-minute kill time, whereas other disinfectants have a 10-minute kill time, so it even kills things on contact much quicker. We will use it in everything that we clean with here. In our spray bottles, in our mop water, we will have a fogger, so that in between when the kids go out to recess, or whenever they go out, we can go in with the fogger, fog the whole classroom down, it disinfects everything. Proper cleaning and disinfecting of all classrooms, restrooms, hallways, offices, etc. will be conducted regularly, and a schedule and a cleaning log will be established to ensure that all classrooms, restrooms, and high-touch areas are properly cleaned and disinfected. And these records will be available to anybody that wants to see them. All packages will be received in a central location in Connolly Hall and will be disinfected prior to a delivery of a classroom or an area. So Erin O'Sullivan, you're familiar with, you know her, she's going to be in Connolly Hall down there greeting all of our visitors and vendors and doing all of the shipping and receiving. So everything will come in through her, she will disinfect it before it gets sent off to a classroom, because we don't know where that package has been. Screening and handling. Students and employees will be screened regularly via questionnaire asking, and those are the 5 questions that I mentioned in the beginning. Following strong recommendations from the CDC and the New York State Education Department, Holy Child will not require routine mandatory COVID-19 testing or antibody testing. We will not require that. For a few reasons, the obvious being I could go get tested right now, go to Stop and Shop and get infected. So that test, really what it does is it creates a false sense of security for the community. If we all come in saying, oh, we've all been tested for COVID-19, nobody has it, you really are letting your guard down now. And so that's the biggest reason. However, Holy Child may require, and I stress may require testing to prove that an individual that has previously tested positive for COVID-19 while at school is clear to return to the building. So if somebody, an employee, a student, has tested positive for COVID-19 while they were here, they may be required to, probably will be required to be cleared by their doctor before they come back into the community. Yes?
What if someone in your class tests positive?
Yep, we'll get to that. In the event that a parent or guardian of a student must be isolated because they have tested positive for COVID-19, the parent or guardian cannot enter the campus for any reason during the quarantine period. In addition, upon return, the parent or guardian may be asked to produce a negative COVID-19 test to the school health official. As a close contact, now, again, that's a definition that changes regularly, close contact. The student may not be able to return to the campus for the duration of the quarantine. In addition, upon return, the student may be asked to produce a negative COVID test to the school health official. And again, we have to really look at that. Okay, what is the close contact? Were you in close contact? Your mom, tested positive. We want to make sure that you're not coming to school until you have, not shown symptoms during the quarantine period. During that time, we are working on procedures. We're going to get to this a little later, so that the child does not miss school. They will be able to attend school remotely and meet with their teachers as needed, so that they're not out and missing anything that they would normally miss. If a student becomes symptomatic for COVID-19 or tests positive, the child may not return to school until after the quarantine is complete, and it has been at least 3 days since the individual has registered a temperature above 100 without the use of fever-reducing medicine. It has been at least 3 days since the individual's symptoms improved, including coughing and shortness of breath. And in addition, upon return, the student may be asked to produce a negative COVID test to the school health official. We will notify the families of that cohort, of that group, that there is a presumptive and or positive case, and then we will take it from there to see where, you know, if the student was in close contact with his or her classmates. But just like a strep test letter, strep throat, it will go home indicating that. And then we have to monitor closely. Going into the next area, if a student presents symptomatic for COVID during the school day, the student will be escorted to a sick room that is dedicated to possible COVID-19 cases. We will have one in each building, and the student's parent or guardian will be notified to pick up the child. All areas that the student may have been in will be closed off and thoroughly disinfected, will not be reopened until those areas have been cleaned. So we will have to go through and make sure that we clean all those areas before we allow any other students in there. And again, this is the importance of keeping the student groupings and the cohorting so that it minimizes exposure to other students. Sorry?
How are you going to be able to differentiate between COVID and flu symptoms? You say they have, if they're symptomatic for COVID, how would you know?
We won't. So, I mean, you know, if there is a case, so we had a case in camp, and it ended up being strep throat, because there is other illnesses out there besides COVID still for children. And so we don't want to alarm anybody that you know, it's COVID, but child went home sick today, and it was, you know, they went to the doctor, and it was a strep. This individual actually got the COVID test as well, even though the doctor said you don't have to. It's not. She said, well, I'm in camp with other students. I just want to make sure everybody is you know, at ease, and the COVID test came back negative.
So you will require kids to have a COVID test if they have some kind of symptoms.
No, if they have strep tests, if they have strep throat, if they have cold, I won't be asking them to produce a COVID negative test. Yes. In the back, sorry, can't see.
So if somebody has positive, then, or has symptoms that look like COVID, and you say it's shut down, do you mean for that, you know, 20 minutes until you get all that screening, and you just keep the kids, or do you literally shut the building down?
No, we don't shut the building down. We shut the areas down where the student was. Yes. Yes.
So, in the hospital, the moment you had COVID, and you're working in the hospital, the moment you have 3 days, actually 2 days without a temperature, they want you back at work. That person is COVID positive for weeks sometimes.
And you don't know.
And they're absolutely fine. So I don't know about this concept of testing, using an inaccurate test that very clearly is showing a lot of false positives and false negatives. Whenever your test shows false positives and false negatives, it is very bad testing. And we're relying on it all over the United States, really bad. But I think the fever makes sense to me, but waiting till a COVID turns negative makes no sense to me.
And that's why I say May.
Yeah.
You know, and that's going to make sure that we have the language in there that we need to have. And because even the state is saying you might want to require. It doesn't say you must.
Hospitals don't.
Getting results, not necessarily within 2 or 3 days.
Or longer.
10 days.
Yes.
Or longer, so the results may be out. So we do have the potential, would you shut down the cohort? Everybody would be from that cohort, would be at home?
I would notify the cohort. And then, you know, in some families may want to keep their children home, in which case we will honor that and allow for the distance learning during that time. And some parents might want to say, you know what, I'm going to monitor at home and see. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So right now, the way the tracking is going in New York State, you'll get, like, if somebody tests positive, then, and you are at a party, say with them, you would get a call saying you had to stay home for 14 days until negative test. That's what I've seen happening in the community. So in school, if somebody tested positive, all the kids in the class would not have to quarantine for 14 days?
I have not heard that from any of the guidelines that have been put out, that everybody would have to quarantine. You know, again, it's, that could change, tomorrow. But even the tracking becomes difficult because, you know, who's to say that that's where the person picked it up? There's so much ambiguity, out there with tracking, and, you know, I know of somebody who had symptoms, was being tested for COVID, and they were asked, that person was asked to reach out to anybody that they might have been in contact with over the past 2 weeks. You're leaving it up to the individual. And that's kind of tough to really do the tracking that way. If we do have a positive case, though, it is, you know, the responsibility of the tester to then, you know, let the Department of Health know that there's a positive case. And the school has to support that as well. So we will encourage you, if you test positive, to make sure that the Department of Health knows. But again, whoever did the test is also responsible for letting the Department of Health know. Yes?
So this was a news, currently there's events, supervision body. I'm not sure how or who went and got tested afterwards, no symptoms, and then, Google trackers or, tracers, found this kid and a couple other kids who had the party and wanted a list, phone numbers, everybody that went there. And when they did not want to rattle friends that didn't have symptoms, they actually, the police went to their house. So this is concerning because they were all forced to then get tested by contact tracers. So this is really mind-blowing to consider. So, you know, is that what you foresee? Because if there's a child that tests positive and they are encouraged to go talk to the health department, does that mean everybody in the class is going to get a knock on the door?
I would hope that they would respect the privacy. I don't know what the Department of Health would do.
They'd like to come to you and ask for a list of the class. Because that's what they did to these kids. So we need to see anything about.
Yeah, well, and I would want to make sure that I don't make that decision alone without, I've never had so many lawyers on retainer as I do now. I'm serious, I have 3 different lawyers on retainer because I want to hear 3 different points of view before I make a decision. And most of 2 of them are educational lawyers that have dealt with a lot of things like this, you know, when H1N1 came out and it was, you know, not to this extent. And then one of them is not an educational lawyer because I want to make sure I have, you know, all points of view. But they're really doing well. So again, this is something that is ever evolving, and our children, our family, their privacy, their security, and their safety is our number 1 priority. So, you know, I want to make sure that continues through all of this. If an employee becomes symptomatic or test positive, the employee may not return to school until after the quarantine is complete and it's been at least 3 days since the individual has registered a temperature. It has been 3 days since the individual's symptoms have improved, including coughing and shortness of breath. You're saying now 2 days too for hospitals. So.
Now, the visuals are changing, as you said.
Yeah.
So 3 days might be the latest number we came up with, but it should be 48 hours.
48 hours.
And you're back at work and you're period.
Yeah. All areas that the employee may have been in will be closed off and thoroughly disinfected. The areas will not be reopened until thorough disinfecting has been completed. In the event, the individual must report to the case to the school and to the Nassau County Department of Health. I made sure to put in there, to your point, Mrs. Yapos, the school is not going to be reporting to the Department of Health. All vendors and visitors will be screened prior to admittance on campus. Hygiene. It's always an issue, especially when you're dealing with middle school boys. Responsible parties must adhere to and promote hygiene, cleaning, and disinfecting guidance set forth by the DOE and CDC. This includes training for all students, faculty, and staff on proper hand and respiratory hygiene, creating extra time in the schedule for hand washing, including but not limited to before and after lunch, recess, when using shared equipment or other high-risk activities. That's the biggest one right there. We're going to ask kids to wash their hands a lot. Why? Because it's the healthy thing to do. You wash your hands before you go and eat. We've never actually had that built into the schedule where we're giving kids the time to go in and wash their hands prior to eating. We'll be building that into the schedule. So COVID or no COVID, again, this is just good hygiene practices. Additional hand sanitizer dispensers will be located throughout the campus, and proper disinfectant and paper towels in common areas or near shared workplace items. So computers, copy machines, things like that will be constantly disinfected. We will have increased monitoring and supervision to ensure adherence of safety measures, because how many of you go and tell your kids to brush their teeth? Right, and they come down and their breath still stinks. So we will make sure that we're monitoring that the kids are washing their hands thoroughly. We will have posters and signs throughout the school promoting hand washing, coughing and sneezing etiquette, symptoms of COVID-19 and social distancing. Parents who do not wish their child to use hand sanitizer because there is a sensitivity sometimes to that alcohol, should inform the school nurse in writing so that provisions can be made for that child to wash their hands more frequently and not use the hand sanitizer. So this is the big one, and you know, if you haven't picked it up by now, I don't always agree with New York State Education Department and their what they put out. No offense to any of our public school workers, but I do agree with this statement that they put out: that the social and emotional well-being must be the school's top priority in supporting school transitions, not at the expense of academics, but in order to create the mental, social, and emotional space for academic learning to occur. So we're continuing, HCA continues to develop plans to ensure all students feel safe, comfortable, welcome, and connected to at least one caring adult in the school. That happens pretty organically here at the school, but we don't want anybody slipping through the crack, especially during this time. And we are redesigning our middle school advisory program to allow for longer advisory times each and every day. At least every morning for 20-25 minutes, where it will be a structured program, and in either the late afternoon or mid-afternoon to check in with their advisor again. A crisis response team is being created to address all issues dealing with social and emotional wellness. And I think, again, COVID or no COVID, it is critical to have a team in place so that a faculty member, a parent, anybody can go to and say, my child is dealing with this right now, how can we help him, how can we help her? This team will be comprised of the school counselor, the campus minister, and administrators. The campus minister, you know, Pam Gartland, she will be heading up the crisis response team. She's working diligently right now to create the protocol, the mission statement, and everything that goes into this crisis response team. The role of the campus minister has been expanded to provide more social, emotional, and spiritual guidance, and will oversee the crisis response team. Ongoing professional development will be implemented for faculty and staff to assist students' social and emotional well-being. We will have several professional development days in the fall to work with the teachers on how to identify issues in students, what to do, what are the green light issues in which teachers can help students through, what are the yellow light issues that the teachers can help students through, but maybe with the help of the crisis response team. What are the red light issues where students are really with something and they need to be, automatically directed to the crisis response team in conjunction with conversations with moms and dads. Our kids are coming out of a long period of time where they haven't been socially interacting with others. I saw it here with lacrosse. When the first day when the lacrosse kids came back, all the boys, they were just looking at each other. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they should say hi. They didn't know. And, through over time, they became more comfortable. But I think it's important that we help the students through this. There's a lot going on in the world right now. I'm not talking about just COVID. There's a lot of things that children are hearing in the news, seeing on the streets, and it's critical that we help our children through this. We have the luxury here of being able to make sure that social, emotional, and spiritual wellness is first and foremost on the top of our list. And let's face it, when the kids feel comfortable, when they feel safe, that's when their academics will soar. That's when they will take off. So we'll spend a lot of time, especially in the beginning of the year, dealing with the social, emotional, and spiritual wellness. Our instructional models. So it's really small up there, but it's in your guide as well. Simple, live classes, we're here in school. That's what we plan to do. We will continue to run on a 6-day schedule. I know you haven't become familiar with that yet because it was only 1 year. Your kids have it down pat, so you don't have to worry about that. We don't as adults. In the event we have to go remote, they're putting up those percentages now that if the region gets to 9%, everything in that region has to close down. So we want to make sure that we have a fully fledged remote program in place in the event that were to happen. Our middle school is pretty much going to stay the same as it was this year. That seemed to work very well. Our lower school, in grades K through 4, the students will attend 2 live classes a day. And both of those classes will be in either math or literacy. One class dedicated to math and one class dedicated to literacy. Classes will be divided in half to allow for more individualized attention. In addition, students will receive instructional videos with assigned projects in science, social studies, and religion. 1 day per week will be dedicated to co-curricular live classes, so live PE, live music. In lower school this year, they got videos for that, but next year it will be live. We have to do this. Students will have assignments posted in Blackboard. That's our new database that we're using, and they have to complete and submit it. The school will work closely with families to ensure that students have the appropriate device at home. Our middle school is not a problem because in grades 5 through 8, it's a one-to-one program. Every student has a Chromebook. In lower school, that's not the case. And so, it was difficult. Sometimes kids were using mom's and dad's phone because mom and dad had to work on the computer at home. If that is the case in lower school with a family and we need a device, you reach out to us and we will be able to provide one for you. Early childhood, which is grades toddler and pre-K, they will receive pre-recorded lessons in the following areas: circle time, math, and literacy, in addition to co-curricular classes. So the difference with toddler through pre-K is that some students are here 3 days, some students are here 5 days. Students that are registered for 5 days or full days will receive additional instruction in the afternoon. And then there's the hybrid piece, which is some at home, some students here. We don't plan to do that at all, but we want to make sure that we have a plan in place because we have to submit it to the state. We will be sending out a survey. In the event the state says every school must go hybrid for the next 2 weeks, we want to make sure what's going to work best for our families. Is that 1 week on, 1 week off, 2 days on, 2 days off? Whatever it might be, we're going to send that survey out to get your input. We also have to look at the legality of some things as well, which we're doing now. Again, hence the 3 lawyers on retainer. If we are filming a class, if we are streaming a class live, what are the legal ramifications with that? Because there are other students in the classroom and we want to make sure that we're protecting everybody's privacy. So we have to look into that. And, you know, when a child needs to be disciplined in the classroom, and for all of you new parents that are thinking of sending your kids here, we don't use corporal punishment. However, you know, it could be embarrassing if Joey is at home with mom and dad, and you know Sally is getting disciplined by the teacher because you know she was being a kid. And when I mean discipline, I mean corrected. Her behavior is being corrected. You know, and Joey's mom and dad hears this. There's some confidentiality there that I don't want. I don't want to risk. You know, Sally being upset because Joey goes to her the next day and said, "Oh, my mom heard that you yelled at class." So we really want to look into this. And again, that's where the survey is going to come. I want to hear from you as to what your take is on that. But again, unless the entire state were to go into lockdown once again, we don't foresee this happening. We have the space, we have the facilities here, we have the luxury of holding classes outside. We do that on a regular basis anyways. Classes go outside, we can continue to do that. But we want to make sure we have all bases covered so that the state is just as impressed with us as a school as they are with us as a camp. The final piece is athletics, which is not in your reopening guide, but I wanted to just bring that to your attention. Right now, we will continue Monday through Thursday with our athletic program in the middle school. They will go outside, they will work with the skills, they will develop soccer skills, lacrosse skills, just as our lacrosse players are doing out there now. The New York State Athletic Association has said that sports cannot start in terms of interleague play until September 21st. I'm not sure what the New York State Association of Independent Schools Athletic Association is going to say. They might follow suit with that. If interleague play is allowed, we would go forward with interleague play. If it is not, then it would be intra-league play, where we have a blue team and a white team, and they would play against one another. They will get the physical activity. It's part of the mission of our school to include not only academics, but the arts, drama, music, and athletics as well. So, like I said at the beginning, we don't want to impact the mission of our school. We don't want to. The mission of our school is not going to change because of this. And well, look at the time. Sorry. Yes.
So my question is in regards to your staff. Say, God forbid, one of the teachers gets the virus.
Yeah.
You don't have, everyone at school calls subs the morning of or the night before. What are your go-abouts for having a sub come into the school? Because subs clearly go to different schools if they're needed.
We will have, like we've had in the past, we've had dedicated subs, and we'll be creating a list of dedicated subs as well. And for the most part, like the subs we've had in the past really only kind of work with us, and we're going from school to school. We don't use an agency. We rely on people that we know. And so we're working actually this summer to build that list and to build a robust list so that we have subs that are, you know, not just substitutes, but they are substitutes that can fill in for different areas. Because if God forbid a teacher were to get sick and had to stay out for a few weeks, we would want to make sure that we would be able to continue with the education and not just have a body in there monitoring the children. So we're looking at, you know, some of the teachers that have been retired, retired in the past, but have a affinity for Holy Child, because once you're here, it's, you don't ever want to leave. And we're building that list. And unfortunately, there are a lot of out of work teachers right now. Some schools, I know it was a private school, I won't mention, but on the last day of school, they fired the entire faculty and staff. And said that we will rehire you based on enrollment, and you can apply for your job again, but you will come in at a lower salary. So the day after that school made that announcement, we got about 6 resumes from the Catholic schools that have unfortunately been closed, diocesan schools, they're reaching out because they have the same belief as we do in terms of Catholic education. So we have a long list, and we're going through that interview process. We also have to make sure that if we are expanding our sections, like we are, may have to do with 4 of our classes, that we find excellent teachers to maintain, the classes as moving forward. We have great teachers here now. And I know the biggest question is going to be, if you have to split, I want to make sure that my kid has, so make sure your contracts are ready. So that's what we're doing, we're building that list. Yeah.
I can't a couple of sentences, so.
Sure, and like I said, Mr. Farady is taking notes, so these statements are very helpful. I'm glad I saw your name on the list today. So yes. Oh, yeah.
I just want to first and foremost thank you for taking a common sense approach that's based on knowledge and not on fear. I mean, I couldn't be more happy.
You're welcome, thank you.
I just wanted to ask you about pre-K. Is everything going to be normal for the children? I mean, obviously they're playing with toys, they're interacting all the time. What is that going to look like?
So we're getting rid of some of the toys that we can't disinfect, like the cloth toys, things of that nature.
Not so much in disinfecting,
Okay.
but just that they have the same interaction that they normally would.
Yeah, they would. And, right now we're looking at it too, this is just a preliminary guide, but to give you a little bit more of what we're looking at, face coverings aren't really even required 3rd grade or below, especially with pre-K, toddler, and nursery. So, we're looking at, maybe not requiring the face coverings because it's not even feasible, number one, for them to keep it on. And number 2, it interferes with the socialization. And toddler, nursery, and pre-K are play-based to begin with, and we want to make sure that that continues, the socialization continues. We are limiting the number of students in pre-K. We have 2 rooms for pre-K right now, and we're capping it at 15. And I know that is recorded, so I can't, go back on that. Which will allow for, is it full? We're close? Okay, we're close. And if we get a big rush, we might open up another section. So if we need to. Toddler is a small class right now because like a lot of children, a lot of parents are saying, all right, 2-year-old, I can wait another year before sending my child to school. But the mission, the philosophy of our early childhood program will remain the same. And students will continue to learn through socialization and play. 1, 2, 3, yes.
I know you said you're gonna have this work program for our kids. By your social distancing. How do you do it with basketball and soccer? Those are very close proximity skills.
They are drills and skills can be taught without having contact with one another. Our basketball league, Level Up Basketball, has been using our gyms. O'Sullivan, and they're coming here at 8 o'clock tonight to use this gym. They're here till like 11 o'clock. And I've been watching them because they're doing a really great job in keeping the kids socially distanced, but building the skills that they need for basketball. So,
So more skills than you need.
yes, yeah, absolutely. Yep. And same thing with lacrosse, because lacrosse is a very contact sport, but it's all passing drills, footwork drills, and so skill development, physical development. Yes.
My question is, what is your teachers do wear masks in the classroom and related to discussion with all of the children about not masking either?
No and yes. So in the classroom, teachers are not required to wear masks. Some teachers may want to, and we have to respect that, but they're not required to. And according to, again, I agree with the New York State Education Department on this one, that they're not requiring it during instruction because it really does impact instruction. Learning is such a human interaction. So that the concept of education is through human interaction, through body language, through, seeing facial expressions. And the face mask covers all of that. And it would totally change our philosophy. We would then become a school that focuses more on just memorization of facts rather than critical thinking and thought development. Yes, you're on that one.
Since you
Kidding.
mentioned the program to carry their captain and nursery.
There is a cap for the nursery as well. Yeah, I think we're about halfway there with nursery. Maybe a little bit more, a little bit more.
Is it also 15?
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Will you please offer shop report?
Yeah, they emailed me already that they're looking to do. Yeah. Yep. And that's a program that we have used, that we trust. Same with Yoga Beans. So our yoga, we will still be reaching out to them and bringing them on. And what's nice is these are relationships that we've had with organizations for quite a long time. We really only allow organizations to work with us if they believe in the same thing that we do, which is the reason why we use Level Up Basketball only. We only rent to them because their philosophy is in line with our philosophy. And same with Soccer Shots. It's a wonderful program. Yes. Hi.
So for these class, in our second grader, are they able to play without mask on, to put down and interact normally, not able to? So, I'm all for it, I just want to make sure that will happen.
It will, and watching the students at camp and the way that they're outside and playing, and some of them have their bandanas up, some of them don't have their bandanas up because again they're outside and it's difficult. But the interaction that's happening is they're not on top of one another because that's dangerous to begin with because people will get hurt. But they are interacting with one another and running around and being socially distanced. Where's Megan? I'm not gonna put you on the spot, but I'm gonna put you on the spot. Can you explain how that kind of looks with camp right now? Yeah.
The kids always have like their backpacks, some of them don't like the backpacks, so they bring their own mask. But what we do a lot of time is we just have it kind of down low enough when they're playing. And if somebody gets hurt or somebody's coming right next to me, I'll quickly put it up. And it's kind of do the same thing, but it doesn't impact them at all. They're just used to it now. It's only 2 weeks into it.
And I've seen some of them have it on, some of them don't.
Right.
And again, least restricted, and different kids might have different comfort levels with it. And it seems, and your question about mask shaming is a good one. And I haven't seen any of that in camp. There are children that don't wear it, and we have to respect everybody's point of view. And again, flexibility, and if people want it on, they wear it. But I haven't seen people go walking around going, oh, you're wearing a mask, or oh, you're not wearing a mask, oh, look at you. The mask was helpful today. There was so much blood at camp today. The mask was really helpful just because I don't even know what happened. The kids were colliding with one another, bloody noses everywhere. We had dodgeball in here. I think that was part of it. Yes.
So I want to move forward, that's commendable, but I want everybody to understand, you're not gonna be able to avoid exposure. It's impossible, all right? If I'm wearing an N95
Wait,
mask.
can you give him the microphone because they can't hear him?
You want to speak to the microphone so that our people at home can hear you too?
That would help, thank you.
It's very commendable that you're trying to limit exposure, but the reality is that you're not gonna be able to avoid exposure. That's just the way it is. If we're wearing N95 masks in the hospital, which are extremely restrictive, very painful by the end of the day, the bridge of your nose is getting ulcers, and that's only blocking 95% of things that are more than 0.3 microns big. Guess what? Coronavirus is smaller than 0.1 microns. Does nothing. The masks that everybody is wearing is very commendable because if you cough or sneeze, you don't want mucus to get all over people. I get it. But understand it does not block the coronavirus from coming out of you or going into you. With that being said, again, it's important that if somebody tests positive, that doesn't mean that they're sick, right? A lot of times it may even mean that they're immune, hence why we're getting such high testing numbers. And currently, COVID virus is less deadly than the flu by a third. I did not see us going this crazy last year. I didn't. So it's good to wear a mask, that's fine, but realize it does not do what we think it does. It just doesn't. Bandanas do it even less so. All right? Because bandanas are not even close to your surgical mask. So in keeping with that, I think nutrition is one important step that you did not touch base on, which I think is a very good point. They should be taking vitamins. Very important. Zinc is a great virus killer in general. There should be some dosing of zinc going on, if not on a daily basis, at least once a week. Vitamin D, they should get their sunshine during the summertime. They should get outside during the winter time. These are important things that we're gonna help you fight that exposure that you're eventually gonna get. But realize that 99.9% of people are not dying. 99% of people are doing fine, and about 0.9% go to the hospital and then leave. Okay? So I don't know where you are with the fear aspect of this, but it's being driven home so terribly that it's impacting a lot of aspects of our lives. Now, the other thing is
Vitamin C, you and I had a conversation too about vitamin C.
vitamin C. There are a slew of vitamins that should be part of your daily staple. If you're not eating it in your food, take it as a supplement. Take it as a supplement. The other thing I wanted to bring up is, I guess one of the things is what you're defining as symptomatic. I wanted to ask that question. You're saying that the student is symptomatic of COVID-19 or tests positive. So to me, I'm interpreting that as somebody is showing viral symptoms, which doesn't necessarily mean it's COVID.
Right.
And odds are in New York State, which by the way, we have 0 COVID cases in the hospital. 0, okay? The COVIDs that are there are testing positive, but they come in for other problems, okay? So if somebody is coming in with viral symptoms, we're assuming it's COVID-19 because of everything that's happening. But, or tests positive, does that mean that we're testing them here in the school?
No. And I think that's, to your point about the, the symptomatic, it would be symptomatic, so we didn't raise the red flag when, somebody came into camp and presented with a fever until, we knew it was strep, and then it was, okay, it was strep. Because kids get sick. I mean, there are other illnesses out there.
That was one other aspect I wanted to address, is the lack of a fever usually means a lack of infection. That's why after somebody's had strep, the fever goes away, 24 hours later, they're allowed back in school. So I don't know where that stands, but that's the way it stands as at work. I think it should probably stand that way here, because if you're waiting for a COVID-19 test that's taking now 5 days to turn around, and on top of that, as with false positives, false negatives, you're potentially keeping a kid out for 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks before their test changes, and yet they're asymptomatic, so.
Yep. And I have a new one on the table. Thank you. And again, you're right about the statistics, 0.05, and it's awful. And, I feel for the people that have battled through this and have battled through COVID and, may have lost loved ones to COVID, because, no death is easy. No illness is easy. But, you are correct. If you look at a state, local, national, global level, I think it's a 0.05% death rate from this across the board. We have a much higher death rate from, especially with children. Swine flu, H1N1 had a deadly impact on I think it was 1,800 children I read died from swine flu. We're nowhere even close to that number with COVID. And we didn't close school well. My school closed when I was there for 1 day because we did have a case, but it was 1 day. So, yes, I agree. Great, thank you. We have,
Some questions from home.
okay, and then
What happens in the event that public schools are closed in September? Will we have no bus transportation? I think they have to contact their district.
yeah, you'll have to contact your district on that. You know, that, I can't, I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. You know, my hope would be is that the district would continue to pay busing services for those children in private school, because again, you are still paying taxes. So if you need help with that battle, let us know, and we will be on your side and working with you. And, you know, it might get to the point, if that were to happen, we might have to figure something out here where we do carpooling or something for people with different districts. We're gonna look at all possible solutions.
If the students are not required to wear face coverings while playing, how will staff ensure that students remain 6 feet apart? Face coverings are not required as long as you maintain social distancing.
So that goes back to the question that we had, are children still gonna be allowed to play, things of that nature? It's interesting when you look at kids on the playground, most of them are not all right on top of each other either. They are, you know, kicking a soccer ball around or doing something or climbing on the bars over here. And as Megan Judge pointed out, if they get into a situation, it's very easy to then pull that face covering if they don't have social distancing. But we will have additional monitors out there. And again, not only because of COVID, just because of the fact that we have children outside playing, we want as many monitors as we can, making sure that they're safe.
And one last question from home. How are nursery teachers going to ensure social distancing? And what about toys and disinfectant?
So toys will be disinfected constantly. And as we mentioned earlier, we will be getting rid of some of the cloth toys, all of the cloth toys, because it's gross anyways. You know, and everything will be disinfected throughout the day. And as far as social distancing, I'm not 100% sure that the same rules apply for nursery for students of that age with regards to social distancing 6 feet. Because that is an age in which, you know, school is social and they have to be together. What's happening in camp is that those kids are working together in the classroom, maintaining their own cohort, so as not to spread anything amongst anybody else in the school. Other questions? We have a few more minutes before basketball comes in and tears us apart. 1, 2, yes, yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you could talk about this room and kind of the procedure if someone is sick, but they're not like in the room by themselves.
No. It's a nurse's office
Okay.
with ventilation. No. It's actually the nicer of the two nurses' office, but we want to make sure that if a child is sick, and again, this is good for anything. If the child is sick and they come in and they have strep, they have anything, we take them to the room that is dedicated to that, and then we have the well visits where the kid that comes in that just needs a Band-Aid can go to the room and it doesn't have to be well ventilated. They can, they can put the Band-Aid on, and there's not that cross contamination, and they'll be very close in proximity to one another. But it's not a closet. It's not anything that's, going to be scary or it's, no, not at all. Yep.
With our remote learning, in our house, we just have like strict rules, which obviously is not applicable with remote learning, but it's definitely a concern in our home. We don't like, we have iPads and stuff like that for long periods of time. So it's just something, maybe that keeps their, our alternate things could be like maybe they wouldn't have to attend all the videos, or like they could sit and do work by themselves and send it in.
That's a good idea, because I don't think you're alone in limiting screen time for your children. So I think that's something, are you writing that down, Mike? Yeah, that we can look into and consider, you know, how do we address remote learning for parents that don't want their kids on the screen all day long. That's good. Thank you.
When we used to listen to radio shows, in the old days, we would activate our imagination with many more neural connections when you were imagining what you were hearing. And it made me worthwhile to have the video aspect turned off
And just the voice.
and have the voice, and it will actually activate more of the kid's brain.
That's a great idea.
So, I don't know.
I am gonna have to put them on retainer. That's a great idea. Make sure you write that down. I like that. That's true, because you create the picture and I like that. There we go. See, so you said there's nothing we can do about it, and there is. Yes, 1, 2. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I did say units. Yeah.
And I don't think the other schools are.
If I can be honest with you, I think I can safely say it's not gonna happen. Yeah. I know Mr. K has already been meeting with the other athletic directors. And, you know, we might do something in where we get together with other schools and do things, but it's not, you know, a full out soccer game or things like that. It might be like, you know, we do soccer skill type of match, things of that nature. We have to reimagine what that's going to look like. You know, I think especially at this age, you know, none of our middle schoolers are going to, you know, Major League Soccer just yet. I mean, they could, but it's not like high school. And so I think we can still create an environment in which there's a competitiveness, they're getting to, you know, compete against other schools, but not in that close contact. Especially in all of our sports that we have, they're all contact sports, soccer, basketball, lacrosse. Okay.
One is from Olivia though.
Oh, okay.
So Olivia had asked me, she understands, you know, staying on heat and everything else. Her question that she wanted me to ask was, one big thing that she loves about the school is the family feeling. I mean, you have the family groups from kindergarten to 5th grade, I think it is. You have, you know, constant gatherings of multiple children and getting to know each other outside of the classroom. You have the field day outside, you have play, you have all these things that is a fun factor, but obviously goes against the social distancing part. Do you have any plans to incorporate somehow those same things that they'll be able to, again, enjoy what they had? I mean, you're talking, you know, she's 2 years and she's, you know, stuff like that.
And, you know, the families are an important part of who we are. In having that connection with other grade levels. So we do have to look at how we're going to do that, you know, in a way that is safe. So those are plans that we're working on now. Tell Olivia that we will have an answer for her. And I love that she asked that question because it's just, I mean, it's coming from her, and that's what the school is about,
Well,
right?
she met Emma and she said, you know, she asked on my way home that day, she was like, is there a chance that Emma will be, you know, becoming a family? And I said, but I'm not sure if, you know, that's still going to happen. Because what they met like once a week all together in one location. So clearly it's going to be a typical thing. But I told her, you know, I went out the door and she's like, don't forget to ask him.
Yes, and tell her,
Yeah,
and you can tell her that we will be creating something. Don't know what it's going to look like.
She's like, is he going to be able to read the Christmas book? Are we all going to be able to sit in front of the fireplace? You know, these are questions that obviously with the virus, you're not thinking of all these special things that they love about the school.
Yeah.
And she said, she's like, he can't not read.
I know.
Am I going to have to watch him on the computer? And I'm like, I don't know.
No, and that, you know, we'll probably do individual classes at a time instead of the whole class together.
My second question is for the students that leave the classroom throughout the day for music lessons or therapy or speech or something like that, will there be a designated classroom or area for those students that are looking or already plan to have that time out?
So, like, if they need,
Like if Olivia were to have speech,
Uh-huh.
we were looking into the previous year, will there be a designated speech room?
Yeah.
Or will there be a designated, so like stuff like the social worker or
Yeah.
violin lessons and stuff like that?
Yeah, and we've had that, like some of these offices here are for those,
Right.
those purposes, yeah, and that will continue. Yep. Yes. Yep.
Well, very strict, school zone, which you have to consider, the days that they're not on is an absence. And the days that require you to be school, and people be days. So while this period of the pandemic, the students are passed for this, that's not going to be the case in September. They'll be expected to, it's going to have to, account for.
Well, we don't have, the good thing is we don't have to have 180 days. We can have whatever it is that we deem necessary to complete our program. But that is a good point, you know, how are we going to, you know, report attendance? But going back, I like that idea of the listening piece, because it's still, you know, in some of the private schools, that's all they did, was they didn't do the video at all, they only did voice. You know, maybe it's because they had already figured it out. I don't want to get that though. Yes, and then we'll go to the.
Just a quick question. You had mentioned that if they close the public schools, we have to figure out another way to get here, but so if.
I don't know if they're, what the busing would do.
Right, but so if Florida closes the public schools, we would still be open. I mean, so you wouldn't be forced to close?
Unless he mandates that the entire state has to close down, you know, that's coming from, you know, if like we had to go into the whole lockdown before where everything had to close. But, you know, we're not in the same boat as public schools. You know, in many public schools, what they're saying right now, they're doing, you know, 2 days on, 2 days off or whatever. You know, I think one district is doing 1 day a week only in person. We don't have to follow that because we can establish our own safe guidelines here. So, yeah, August, the first week of August, but our plans don't have to be submitted to the state until August 7th. So I'm pretty confident that, you know, I honestly don't think that we're being considered as part of the public schools. You know, I got an email 2 weeks ago, I got an email from the representative who is the liaison between the public schools and the private schools. And she said, here's the guidelines for private schools. And that was on Thursday, and on Friday morning, no joke. Her email said, whoops, I take that back, these aren't the guidelines. It was like for some whole other industry. I think it was like manufacturing that she sent us. And then she said they'll be forthcoming. And then last week, they're still forthcoming, the plan your reopening, and the guidelines will be coming shortly. And like I said, last night at 6:57, they came in. But in working with, you know, what they put out for the public schools, in talking to a lot of other heads of schools, not only here in New York State, but the Holy Child Network has schools all across the country, and so we've been meeting on a regular basis through Zoom and whatnot, and sharing our reopening plans. You know, I have a few colleagues, friends of mine that are heads of school out in California, and they're a hot spot too. And so I'm getting, you know, input from them because they're already looking at opening up some of their schools right now. Arizona, a friend of mine is in Arizona, another friend is in California or Colorado. So just getting all these different reopening plans from all these different areas of the country and putting together our own. So even though the state hasn't been able to put something out, we know that, you know, what we have is going to cover what the state requires. Another question?
Yes. Will kindergartners also be allowed to play and interact in the classroom?
Yes. Yep. And kindergarten is getting, we have to 6 weeks. Yeah, so we're gonna have to split that. Our lower school classes are getting really filled. So we're probably gonna have to have 2 sections in almost every single lower school class. Not complaining about it, but, you know. Yes, that's why we're splitting. It's actually gonna be better, I think, than what it's been, because we're limiting it to a maximum of 15. Again, you know, some rooms might not be able to have 15, so some sections might be smaller than 15, but that's the maximum we're gonna be. And I know some of the classes last year were 17, a little bit larger, so we're actually gonna be reducing the student to teacher ratio by doing this. So get your requests in now for the teacher. Basketball is going to be coming in. Thank you so much. I'm available. I'm here. If you have questions, you know where I live, so it's not like you can't find me. But you know, because something's going to hit you at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know what? I wanted to ask that question. Don't email me at 3 o'clock in the morning. Go back to sleep. Write it down and email me in the morning. Thank you.
You when you do it tomorrow. Don't let people take money.
I love that Olivia asked that.
Well, it's hard for interest since she met Emma.
Hi, how are you?
Emma's been on her. You want me to end the screen?
Good, 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 good.